What if I told you that everything you've been taught about success, about earning your place in this world, has been a lie designed to keep you small? You were never meant to be normal. You were never meant to crawl through life, asking for crumbs from a world that was designed to echo your voice. You were never meant to dim the light of your assumption, just to comfort those who cannot remember their own. There is something in you, something ancient, something royal, that has grown tired of shrinking, tired of waiting, tired of begging for what was already yours in the beginning. That tiredness is not weakness. It is the birth cry of your true identity. It is the I am stirring in the tomb of self-forgetting, whispering, arise and walk in your dominion. Here's what they don't want you to know. To act like you were meant to win is not arrogance. It is accuracy. It is alignment with the truth you buried beneath years of performance, trauma, and spiritual begging. You thought life was about becoming, but I tell you now, it is about remembering. Remembering that you were sent here to speak from the mountaintop, not to weep in the valley. You were meant to command with stillness, not perform with panic. The identity of the victor is not earned. It is assumed. But who taught you to lose? Who taught you that humility meant hesitation? Who taught you that asking for permission was noble, that deferring your power was spiritual? These are lies, systems of delay you were never meant to carry. You were not born to manifest from want, but to decree from fullness. And the world that now feels against you is not your enemy. It is your echo. It reflects only the tone you speak when no one else is listening. So let us be clear. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is not what you say in moments of inspiration, but what you assume in the stillness. If you believe you were made to win, the world cannot help but organize around that belief. But if you carry the tone of the one trying to win, hoping to win, needing to win, the victory will remain a stranger to your house, because you are not inviting it. You are postponing it. There is a great reversal at the heart of spiritual law. You do not win and then feel like a winner. You feel like a winner and then the outer bows in recognition. This is the only law you cannot bypass. You cannot cheat it with effort, with noise, with desperation. The feeling is the secret, and the feeling of the one who was meant to win is quiet, complete, unshaken by delay or denial. That feeling is your only task. That state is your only responsibility. From it, all things flow. So today I speak to the one who remembers, the one beneath your name, the one behind your face, the one who has always known there was more. I do not ask you to try harder. I ask you to rise. Rise into the assumption of your divine inheritance. Rise into the knowing that no one can give you what you have not already received within. Rise into the state of the man who does not wait for evidence. He is the evidence. Act like you were meant to win, because you were, because you are, because you cannot lose unless you continue to argue for the mask you were never born to wear. You've betrayed yourself more times than you care to count. Not through violence, not through vice, but through vibration, through the subtle posture of defeat you carry in the silence. You say you believe, but your tone reveals an orphan soul still waiting for permission to rise. You say I am with your lips, and yet your breath holds the tension of one who doubts his own authority. You walk into rooms with your head bowed low, asking the world to reflect what only you were meant to command. And when it does not, you call it rejection. But it is not rejection. It is feedback. The law is always listening. You prayed like a beggar while being the author. You whispered affirmations while rehearsing doubt. You hoped life would choose you while refusing to act like you'd already been chosen. That is not spiritual discipline. It is spiritual delay. You call it humility, but it is hesitation. You call it caution, but it is contradiction. You have clothed yourself in the garments of the loser while claiming to know the law, and that split has cost you everything. You look at your past and call it truth. You look at your failures and call them prophecies. But I tell you, the only thing they ever revealed was the state you dwelled in at the time. They do not speak of who you are. They speak only of who you were being. And who you were being was a man rehearsing loss, expecting delay, negotiating with heaven as if you were its servant instead of its image. The problem is not the world. The problem is that you've mistaken memory for identity. You've mistaken your track record for your name. But the past is not a prophecy unless you agree with it. The law does not remember. The law does not punish. It only reflects. And so long as you continue to identify as the one who must try harder, heal more, or earn it, you will remain locked in the posture of postponement forever, training for a war that is already over. You have been practicing defeat in your inner speech, saying you trust while scanning the horizon for validation, asking for signs because you don't yet believe your own word. This is the fracture. This is the error. You are still living like a man on the outside of his own kingdom, waiting for a gate that only opens from within. And every time you speak of lack, even casually, you tie yourself once more to the identity you say you're leaving behind. You must see it now. You've been waiting for circumstances to call you a winner, so you could finally believe it. But belief does not follow evidence. It precedes it. You act as if not because you're deluded, but because the feeling is causative. You step into the state before the mirror changes, or the mirror has no choice but to reflect the old you. Do you not see? You are not reacting to reality. You are rehearsing it. You have been faithful, but not to the truth. You have been faithful to your unworthiness, to your delays, to your justifications. You have mastered the art of partial embodiment, speaking like a king, but moving like a beggar, declaring the law but checking your outer reality for proof. And the law, being just, responds not to your words, but to your tone. And your tone has said, I am not yet. I am not enough. I am still waiting. But today you are exposed. And exposure is not condemnation. It is initiation. Now that you see the contradiction, you must choose. Will you continue speaking truth while living lie? Will you continue trying to manifest through effort instead of assumption? Will you keep asking the world to approve what your soul already knows? Or will you rise? Will you now walk, talk, breathe, and remain as one who was meant to win? Because until you do, no law, no teacher, no technique can save you from the identity you refuse to lay down. There is no power outside of your assumption. Let this truth pierce through every false altar you've ever built. You were told that life is earned, that favor must be proven, that results require approval from something greater than you. But I tell you now, you are the greater. You are the point of origin. You are the operant power. The feeling that you dare to accept as already true, even in the face of its complete physical absence, is the womb from which your world is born. Not someday, not when the signs agree. Now, always now. Victory is not achieved. It is remembered. To act like you were meant to win is to remember that you already have. Every outcome you desire, every condition you seek to alter, every door you hope to walk through already exists in the eternal present. The only variable is your state of being, your frequency, the inner tone you carry in silence. That is the gatekeeper. That is the architect of all outcomes. This is the divine pattern hidden within Scripture. He calleth things that are not seen as though they were, not because he is playing make-believe, but because he knows the invisible is more real than the visible. He does not ask the outer world for confirmation. He declares it from within and lets the outer rearrange. You were taught to believe when you see. I tell you, you will see when you believe, and not 1 second soon. Assumption is not performance. It is not enthusiasm. It is inner congruence, the complete alignment of identity, inner speech, and expectation around one sacred fact. It is already so. That alignment is what produces the echo. That is the divine pattern. And until that alignment is held, not visited, but held, the outer must remain in disarray. To live like you were meant to win is not about arrogance. It is about authority. The same authority that stilled storms, multiplied loaves, raised Lazarus. These were not miracles. They were demonstrations of law, of inner dominion over outer reflection. Every man who walked in spiritual power first walked in assumption. He was the thing before it arrived. He acted from the end, not toward it. That is the reversal you must now accept. You have imagined winning as the reward. It is not. It is the starting point. Every desire in your heart is a divine memory. It is the echo of something you've already claimed in higher realms. And the only delay in its appearance is the contradiction you carry between knowing and being. You affirm abundance but assume lack. You declare love but embody rejection. You speak freedom but still wear the chains of fear. And the law, being impersonal, being faithful, returns only what you are, not what you claim. There is no one to change but self. Not the people around you, not your circumstances, not even your behavior, only your state. The law of consciousness is not moved by toil, but by tone. You want to win? Then become the winner now, in breath, in posture, in thought, and let the world catch up to what you've dared to accept as law. Stop negotiating with conditions. Stop reasoning with time. Time is not your master. It is your servant. It obeys the inner decree. If you say it must take 6 months, then it must. If you say I'm not ready yet, then you will never be. But if you say I am now who I choose to be, and you hold that assumption in the furnace of feeling, without panic, without wavering, then nothing can stop its externalization. The law is mechanical, but your assumption is sovereign. To act like you were meant to win is to assume the position of the already crowned, not because the world approves, but because your soul remembers. The crown has always been yours. The robe has always hung within reach. But you keep dressing in the garments of delay. You keep speaking as the one waiting, even while you affirm the promise. No more. From this moment, you must become intolerant of the contradiction. Assume the end and dwell there. Walk from it. Speak from it. Imagine only from it. And if the old voice returns, you do not argue. You return quietly, calmly, completely to the state of the winner, the one who no longer chases outcomes, the one who commands them in silence, because that is the only way anything real has ever been created. Now we descend into the furnace of practice, not a practice of striving, but of stillness, not a performance for the world, but a sacred vow kept within. For the one who was meant to win does not beg the mirror to change. He becomes the reflection he desires and lets the mirror obey. If you will do what I now say, not once, not when convenient, but daily, steadily, as one who knows this is the path home, then you will see what others call impossible bend before you without force. Each morning, before the day lays its hand upon you, before memory and personality wrap themselves around you like garments, enter the silence. Not to ask, not to plead, but to assume. Sit in the throne of your being and declare inwardly, I am the one who was meant to win. Not with noise, not with theatrics, but with complete inner alignment. Feel the truth of that sentence, not as something you hope for, but as something you remember. Let your breath carry the ease of one who has nothing to prove. That breath is the banner of the new state. Stand before your own reflection, not to be admired, but to be remembered. Look into your own eyes and say within, this is the face of the man who commands his world. This is the expression of the one for whom all things move into place. Then go out and move through the day as that one. You do not need to convince others. You do not need to explain your faith. The tone will do all the work. That inner command, silently spoken, will go before you and rearrange the field. Become exquisitely aware of your inner speech. The inner talk you indulge, when no one is watching, is the most creative thing you do all day. If your inner conversations still sound like desperation, explanation, justification, you are rehearsing defeat. Replace them not with empty slogans, but with language befitting a victor. Hear yourself being congratulated. Imagine others recognizing the shift in your presence, but do not fantasize as a future. Speak inwardly as if it is already happening. This is the reversal you must master. The winner is not crowned at the end. The crown is assumed at the beginning. You enter every room as if you've already been affirmed by heaven, not to impress, but to express the state, the vibration, the tone of the fulfilled man. Others will feel it. They may not understand it, but they will respond. Identify now the rituals of the loser, the ways in which you unconsciously announce delay to the world. Hesitation, apology, over-explaining, needing feedback. These are the leaky behaviors of someone unsure of his right to win. Cut them, not with shame, but with clarity. Every act, every word, every breath must now rise from the assumption of victory. You must treat your tone like it is holy, because it is. It is the only thing that creates. When the world resists you, and it will, it is not a sign that the law is failing. It is a test of your frequency. Will you react? Will you doubt? Or will you return inward and hold the state? That is the entire curriculum of the winner. Holding the end while the middle screams, remaining still while the storm performs. Do not break the posture. Do not abandon the tone. The law is faithful. If you remain, it must conform. Each night before sleep, enter once more the state of victory. Hear the praise. Feel the completion. Dwell in the inner scene where your world has already caught up to who you chose to be. This is not delusion. It is dominion. You are rehearsing the end, not as fantasy, but as fact. Sleep in that vibration. Let your subconscious receive that tone, and it will do the work. This is your life now, walking as one who has already won. No matter the outer picture, no matter the delay, no matter the appearance, you act like the one who was meant to win because that is who you are. And every moment you hold that identity, the world is being silently bent into shape. You are not chasing, you are being. And being is the seed of every miracle. So when the doubt comes, and it will, you do not explain. You do not confess. You return. Return to the tone. Return to the breath. Return to the sentence. I am the one who was meant to win. And you walk on. You have moved through life as though your success were still under negotiation, your worth still pending a verdict. But I tell you, there is no jury. There is no trial. There is only the word. And the word was always in your mouth. I am. That is the final and only law. This is your rebirth, and it will not announce itself with thunder. It will arrive as stillness, a certainty that needs no signature, a breath that no longer rushes, a posture that no longer bends to be accepted. You will speak less. You will smile more. You will move as if life has already cleared the path before you, because it has. Because you cleared it the moment you assumed the one who was meant to win. So stand now, not in defiance, but in memory of the throne you once left and the crown you now reclaim. You are the one reality follows. If this stirred something inside you, it was meant for you, not by accident, not by chance, but by alignment. The words were not information, they were confirmation. That quiet thrum beneath your ribs, that breath you didn't realize you were holding, that stillness where the mind finally went silent, that was the signal. The veil just lifted, and now you must choose what to do with what you remember.
Imagine possessing a superpower so potent it could create life, fuel your dreams, and unlock the secrets of the universe. Now imagine flushing it down the toilet daily. Sounds dumb, right? Well, that's exactly what you're doing every time you masturbate. Take a deep breath. Feel that energy coursing through you? That's your life force, your power, and you're squandering it. For what? A fleeting moment of pleasure? Masturbation isn't just a harmless habit, it's actively killing your spirit. Uncomfortable? Good. Growth happens at the edge of discomfort. Grow up. Ask yourself, are you truly living up to your full potential? Are you as energized, focused, and spiritually connected as possible? If not, what you're about to hear might just revolutionize your life. This isn't about morality or religion. It's about tapping into ancient wisdom that modern science is only beginning to grasp. It's about reclaiming your power and unleashing your true potential. In Taoist philosophy, they speak of Jing, your body's most precious essence. Think of it as the oil in your car's engine. Every ejaculation depletes this essence, this life force energy. The ancient Taoists believed that 100 drops of blood were required to create 1 drop of semen. That's how valuable they considered this fluid. But ejaculating is natural. You're probably thinking, well, it's not natural, you're in a mental paradigm. You've been caught in a construct, conditioned to believe that it's natural to self-pleasure and to ejaculation, and even if it was natural, we all know the consequences of overindulgence. You can't ascend to your highest self while constantly indulging your lowest impulses. It's like trying to climb a mountain while digging a hole beneath your feet. Let me get specific about what you're losing with each ejaculation. Semen is a complex fluid containing over 200 separate proteins, as well as vitamins B12, C and E, zinc, calcium, citric acid, fructose, and other nutrients. You're literally expelling life-giving substances from your body that are meant to be used to create a human baby. This is not rhetoric, this is a fact. But it's not just about the physical components, it's about the energy, the potential, the very essence of creation that you're carelessly tossing away. Every time you masturbate, you're choosing momentary pleasure over long-term power and vitality. Think about the most successful, charismatic people you know. Have you ever noticed an aura of magnetism around them? That's the power of retained sexual energy. When you stop wasting this energy, you start radiating a charisma that attracts success, opportunities, and deep connections. For the skeptics, I'll explain the science. 1. Frequent masturbation desensitizes dopamine receptors, numbing you to life's joys. This isn't just about sex, it affects your ability to feel pleasure and motivation in all areas of life. You're essentially giving yourself a form of anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. 2. Ejaculation lowers testosterone, crucial for energy, motivation, and cognitive function. Studies have shown that abstaining from ejaculation for 7 days can increase serum testosterone levels by 145.7%. Imagine what that could do for your energy levels, your mental clarity, and your drive to achieve your goals. 3. Porn-induced erectile dysfunction is a growing concern, rewiring brains to respond to pixels instead of people. This isn't just affecting your sex life, it's changing the way your brain processes reward and pleasure, potentially impacting your ability to form deep, meaningful relationships. 4. Research has shown that semen retention can increase androgen receptors in the brain. This means your body becomes more responsive to the testosterone you have, amplifying its positive effects. 5. Abstaining from ejaculation has been linked to increased spinal cord reflex excitability. In simpler terms, this means improved physical performance and faster reflexes. Now, let me tell you about injaculation, the practice of experiencing orgasm without ejaculation. Yes, orgasm is separate from ejaculation. This isn't just some new age concept. It's rooted in ancient Taoist sexual practices and is gaining recognition in modern sexology. Research and our own experience tells us that ejaculation will lead to increased energy levels. By retaining the nutrients and life force in semen, you're keeping that energy in your body. Improved prostate health. Contrary to popular belief, regular ejaculation isn't necessary for prostate health. Ejaculation allows for the benefits of orgasm without the loss of vital fluids. Remember, those fluids are needed to create life. Imagine all the vital life essence within what you habitually eject. Enhanced sexual stamina. As you master control over your ejaculatory reflex, you naturally last longer during sexual activities. More intense orgasms. Many practitioners report whole-body orgasms that far surpass the brief pleasure of ejaculatory orgasms. Spiritual awakening. As you learn to circulate sexual energy through your body, you may experience heightened states of consciousness and spiritual insights. Imagine channeling all that conserved energy into your goals, dreams, and spiritual growth. Don't forget what you're here to do. But it's not just about the benefits of retention, it's about what you're avoiding. Every time you ejaculate, you're depleting your body of zinc, selenium, and other crucial nutrients. You're flooding your system with prolactin, which suppresses dopamine. You're triggering a refractory period where your body and mind are less capable and less energized. Now let's talk about the spiritual essence behind this. In tantric traditions, sexual energy is the key to higher consciousness, the fuel for kundalini awakening. But instead of raising this energy to enlighten your mind, you're spilling it out, dimming your light. The Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, an ancient text of 112 meditation techniques, includes several practices focused on using sexual energy for spiritual awakening. One such technique instructs, at the start of sexual union, keep attentive on the fire in the beginning, and so continuing, avoid the embers in the end. This is about maintaining awareness and circulating energy rather than losing it through ejaculation. Do you often feel lost, struggling to find purpose or deep connections? Like I've been saying, you're constantly depleting the very energy needed for spiritual growth. Your sexual energy isn't just about reproduction or pleasure, it's the most potent creative force you possess. It's the energy that can fuel your deepest inspirations, your most enlightening insights, and your highest achievements. It helps you unfold into the real you. This isn't about repression, it's about mastery. Let me say that again. It's not about repression, it's about mastery. Think. Your sexual energy is like an oil well. Will you let it gush out wastefully or refine it to power your entire life? Here's a roadmap for you. You're welcome to walk this path alongside us. 1. Question every urge. Is this the best use of my creative energy? When you feel the impulse to masturbate, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself what you could create or achieve if you channeled this energy differently. 2. See your sexual energy as sacred. Your body is a temple. Treat it as such. Start viewing your sexuality not as a source of quick pleasure, but as a wellspring of vitality and creative power. 3. Transmute the energy. Channel it into exercise, art, or passion projects. When sexual energy arises, try redirecting it. Do some push-ups, stretches, deep breath work, handstands. Work on that business plan. You'll be amazed at how this energy can fuel your vision. Think, feel. 4. Meditate. Learn to circulate this energy throughout your body. Try this. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and visualize your sexual energy as a warm, golden light in your pelvic area. 5. Explore tantric practices and ejaculation with a partner. Please let it be with someone who you share spiritual connections with, someone who you love. Transform your connections. Tantric sex isn't just about pleasure, it's about using sexual connection as a pathway to spiritual awakening. Start by practicing extended foreplay, synchronized breathing with your partner, and maintaining eye contact during intimacy. Practice testicular breathing. This Taoist technique involves using breath and visualization to draw energy from your testicles up into your body. It's a powerful way to cultivate and circulate sexual energy. Again, research this specific thing and don't forget the name, testicular breathing. 7. Engage in regular physical exercise. This helps to circulate the conserved sexual energy throughout your body, preventing stagnation and promoting overall vitality. Physical exercise can be things like hatha yoga and qigong as well. Here's a provocative thought. Perhaps the powers that be want you to keep masturbating. A population drained of vital energy, numbed by dopamine hits, is easier to control. Let this bubble in your brain for a minute. In a world that constantly bombards you with sexual imagery and promotes instant gratification, choosing to retain and cultivate your sexual energy is a radical act of self-empowerment. Let me say that again. In a world saturated with sexual imagery and the lure of instant gratification, choosing to retain and cultivate your sexual energy becomes an act of self-empowerment. Think. I'm not here to dictate your actions. I'm here to make you question everything. To make you think deeply about how your choices shape your reality. Every time you choose to masturbate, you're making a decision about who you want to be and what you want to achieve in life. Here's your challenge: 30 days without masturbation. Retain your energy and transmute it into something higher. Journal your experiences, mood, energy levels, mental clarity, spiritual insights. Pay attention to how your interactions with others change, how your productivity increases, and how your dreams become more vivid. You will struggle. You will get pushed back, and that's okay. The awareness itself is transformative. Each time you resist the urge, you're building willpower, you're reclaiming your power, and you're choosing your higher self over momentary pleasure. If you make it through those 30 days, you'll never see yourself the same way again. You'll tap into a wellspring of power you never knew existed. You will experience increased confidence and charisma, enhanced mental clarity and focus, more vivid dreams and intuitive insights, greater physical vitality and faster recovery from exercise, a magnetic attraction that draws people and opportunities to you, deeper, more fulfilling connections with partners, a sense of purpose and spiritual connection. Remember, this isn't about counting days. The 30 days are just a benchmark, nothing to brag about in the comments section. It's really about a lifestyle change, a paradigm shift leading to a permanent perceptive upgrade. Semen retention doesn't mean no sex, it means mastering your sexual energy. Research ejaculation techniques. Learn more about Taoist and Tantric practices. This is a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. You are not your body. You're not your urges. You are a spiritual being with infinite potential. It's time to stop leaking your power and start embodying it. It's time to reclaim the energy that's rightfully yours and use it to fuel your evolution. Are you ready to reclaim your energy? To stop killing your spirit and start fueling your ascension? To step into your full power as a man? The choice is yours. But remember, every decision either feeds your spirit or starves it. Every time you choose to retain your semen, you're choosing empowerment over weakness, creation over waste, ascension over stagnation. The power is in your hands, literally. What are you going to do with it? Comment below if you know you've been depleting these vitamins and nutrients.
Good evening, my friends. Tonight I am going to teach you the most important skill you will ever learn in manifestation. Not how to imagine, not how to visualize, not how to do techniques. Tonight you will learn how to stay in the state. Because here is the truth that most people never grasp. You can assume your desire perfectly. You can enter the state of the wish fulfilled beautifully. You can feel it deeply for a moment. But if you cannot stay there, if you fall out of the state an hour later, a day later, a week later, your desire will never harden into fact. The secret to manifestation is not in entering the state. It is in remaining in the state. Tonight you will learn exactly how to do this. You will learn how to stay faithful to your assumption when circumstances contradict it. You will learn how to deepen your faith when doubt attacks. You will learn how to live in your desired state so naturally, so completely, that nothing can shake you out of it. Are you ready to become unshakable? Then let us begin. Let me show you the pattern that destroys most manifestations. A person has a desire. They learn the law, they get excited. They visualize and feel perfectly. For 20 minutes they feel their wish fulfilled. They feel wealthy, loved, successful, healthy. They fall asleep in the most beautiful state of consciousness. And when they wake up in the morning, they check their reality immediately. They see the same old circumstances staring back at them. And in that moment, that crucial moment, they fall out of the state. It is not working, they think. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I am not good enough at this. Maybe my desire is not coming. They have left the state. And the moment they leave the state, they stop creating their desire and start creating doubt, lack, and more waiting. This is the cycle that traps 99% of students. They enter the state beautifully, but they cannot stay there. They are shaken out by circumstances, by time, by doubt, by impatience, by the opinions of others. But tonight, this cycle ends. Tonight, you learn how to stay in the state no matter what. Before I teach you how to stay in a state, you must understand what a state actually is. A state is not a mood. It is not an emotion. It is not a temporary feeling that comes and goes. A state is a complete constellation of consciousness. It is a total way of being. It is how you think, how you feel, what you assume, what you expect, what you take for granted, how you see yourself, how you see the world. Think of consciousness as a mansion with infinite rooms. Each room is a different state. The room of poverty is one state. The room of wealth is another state. The room of loneliness is one state. The room of love is another state. Each room, each state, is complete and self-contained. When you are in the room of poverty, everything in that room reflects poverty. Your thoughts are poverty thoughts. Your feelings are poverty feelings. Your assumptions are poverty assumptions. The view from the window shows a poverty world. When you move to the room of wealth, everything changes. Your thoughts become wealth thoughts. Your feelings become wealth feelings. Your assumptions become wealth assumptions. The view from the window shows a wealth world. You are always in some state. Always. You cannot not be in a state. The question is, which state are you occupying? And more importantly, how do you stay in the state you have chosen? Here is the first principle of staying in a state. You must know, not believe, but know that the state is real. The state of wealth is just as real as the state of poverty. The state of being loved is just as real as the state of being lonely. The state of health is just as real as the state of sickness. These are not fantasies. These are not imaginary. These are actual states of consciousness that exist right now. When you assume wealth, when you enter the state of being a wealthy person, you have not created something new. You have simply moved from one existing room to another existing room. The room of wealth was always there. You just were not occupying it. This understanding is crucial because it removes doubt. You are not trying to create a state. You are not trying to make something happen. You are simply choosing to occupy a state that already exists. And once you know the state is real, once you truly grasp that wealth, love, health, success all exist as actual states of consciousness right now, staying in that state becomes easier. You are not maintaining a fantasy. You are dwelling in a reality. The fact that the physical world has not yet reflected it is irrelevant. In consciousness, which is the only reality that creates, you are in that state. Now let me teach you the most important word in manifestation. Dwell. To dwell means to live, to reside, to make your home. You do not visit. You do not stop by occasionally. You dwell there. Most people visit their desired state. They go there during doing techniques for 20 minutes. They feel wonderful. Then they leave and return to their old state for the remaining 23 hours and 40 minutes. This is not dwelling. This is meditating. To manifest, you must dwell in your desired state. You must make it your home. You must live there. Think there, feel there, be there. Not for 20 minutes, but as your permanent residence. So, how do you dwell in a state? Let me show you. The moment you wake up, before you move, before you check the papers, before you think about your day, you choose where you will dwell today. In the drowsy state between sleep and waking, you are highly suggestible. This is your opportunity to establish your dwelling state for the day. Ask yourself, where am I dwelling today? In the state of having my desire, or in the state of lacking my desire? Then immediately assume the state of having your desire. Feel yourself to be that person. Not someday. Not when it manifests. Now. You are that person now. This takes 30 seconds. 30 seconds to set your dwelling for the entire day. Most people skip this step. They wake up and immediately return to whatever state they were in yesterday. Usually worry, lack, or wanting. They start their day in the wrong room. But you who are learning to stay in the state, you begin every single day by consciously choosing your dwelling. You wake up in the state of the wish fulfilled. This morning establishment creates momentum. It is much easier to stay in a state all day when you begin the day in that state. Here is the truth. During the day you will fall out of the state. Especially in the beginning. This is normal and expected. Someone will say something that triggers doubt. You will see a circumstance that contradicts your assumption. An old thought pattern will arise. And suddenly, without even realizing it, you will have left the state. This is not failure. This is simply the nature of learning a new habit. The key is not to never leave the state. The key is to notice quickly when you have left and to return immediately. Think of yourself as a guard watching the door of your consciousness. Your job is not to prevent every negative thought from knocking. Your job is to refuse to let them in and take up residence. If a negative thought arises, this is not working. You notice it immediately. You recognize, I have left the state. That is a thought from the old state of lack. And you choose, no, I am dwelling in the state of my wish fulfilled. I return there now. This is the practice, over and over throughout your day. Notice, return. Notice, return. At first you might fall out of the state dozens of times a day, but each time you notice and return, you are training your consciousness. You are making the desired state more natural, more automatic, more permanent. Eventually, and this happens faster than you think, the desired state becomes your default. You stop falling out because you have truly moved into that room and closed the door behind you. Let me reveal to you one of the most powerful secrets of staying in the state. Master your inner conversations. Right now in this moment, what are you saying to yourself about your desire? Are you saying, I hope this works? When will it come? I'm still waiting. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. What if it doesn't happen? These inner conversations are the language of the wrong state. Every time you think these thoughts, you are dwelling in the state of lack, waiting, and doubt. But when you stay in the desired state, your inner conversations change completely. It is done, this is mine, I am so grateful this is accomplished. I love having this is who I am. These are the inner conversations of someone dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled. Your inner conversations are not random. They are not meaningless. They are the voice of the state you are dwelling in, and they are incredibly powerful in keeping you in that state, or pushing you out of it. Here is a practice that will transform your ability to stay in the state. Throughout your day, listen to your inner conversations, not to judge them, not to fight them, simply to observe them. What are you saying to yourself about your desire? What are you saying to yourself about yourself? What are you saying to yourself about the world? And whenever you catch an inner conversation that belongs to the old state, stop it immediately. Do not engage with it. Do not argue with it. Simply stop it and replace it with the inner conversation that belongs to your desired state. Old conversation, I'm still broke. When will the money come? New conversation, I am abundant. Money flows to me easily. Old conversation, I still haven't heard from them. Maybe they don't love me. New conversation, I am loved and desired. This relationship is perfect. Old conversation, my body still has symptoms. What if I never heal? New conversation, I am healthy and whole. My body is strong and vital. This practice, catching and redirecting your inner conversations, is one of the most powerful tools for staying in the state. Why? Because your inner conversations are the constant background noise of your consciousness. If that background noise is negative, you cannot stay in a positive state. But when you change the background noise to match your desired state, staying in that state becomes natural and effortless. Now let me address something crucial. How do you deepen your faith in the state when you have not yet seen physical evidence? This is where most people struggle. They can assume their desire for a day, maybe a week, but as time passes with no physical manifestation, their faith weakens. Doubt creeps in. They begin to question whether the state is real, whether the law works, whether they are doing it right. Here is how you deepen faith, through experience in consciousness. You do not need physical evidence to know something is true. You need experiential evidence in consciousness. Let me explain. When you imagine yourself in your desired state, when you feel yourself to be wealthy or loved or healthy, that is an experience, not a physical experience, but a conscious experience. And conscious experience is just as real, just as valid, just as evidential as physical experience. The more you experience yourself in the desired state in imagination, the more real that state becomes to you. The more you dwell there in consciousness, the more faith you have that it is true. Think of it this way. If I tell you about a country you have never visited, you might believe me intellectually, but you do not know that country is real from experience. But if you visit that country in imagination, if you see it, hear it, smell it, feel it, experience it vividly and repeatedly, it becomes real to you. Not hypothetically real, experientially real. This is how you deepen faith. Not by waiting for physical proof, but by giving yourself repeated conscious experiences of dwelling in the desired state. Every time you feel your wish fulfilled, you are having an experience. Every time you assume your desire throughout the day, and think from that assumption, you are having an experience. Every time you imagine yourself as the person who has their desire, you are having an experience. These experiences accumulate, they build upon each other, and gradually, subtly, your faith deepens, not because you are trying to believe harder, but because you have experienced the state so many times that it has become real to you. This is why I say persist. Persist in dwelling in the state, not to convince God, not to make something happen, but to give yourself enough conscious experience of the state that it becomes more real to you than your current circumstances. Now let me teach you how to handle the inevitable moments of doubt. Doubt will come. Even when you are dwelling beautifully in your desired state, even when you are doing everything right, doubt will knock on the door. But it's been 3 weeks and nothing has changed. But I still don't see any evidence. But what if this doesn't work for me? But my circumstances are getting worse, not better. These doubts are not signs that you are failing. They are not signs that the Lord does not work. They are simply the old state trying to reclaim you. Remember, you are moving from one state to another. The old state does not want to let you go. It will send doubts, fears, and contradictions to pull you back. How do you handle these doubt attacks? Not by fighting them. Not by getting upset that you are doubting, but by recognizing what they are and refusing to entertain them. When doubt appears, here is what you do. Step 1. Recognize it. There is doubt. There is the old state trying to reclaim me. Step 2. Refuse to entertain it. Do not argue with the doubt. Do not try to prove it wrong. Do not engage with it at all. Simply refuse to give it your attention. Step 3. Return to your assumption. Immediately return to the state of the wish fulfilled. Feel it, know it, dwell in it. Think of doubt as a wave. If you stand firm, if you remain rooted in your assumption, the wave crashes against you and then recedes. It has no power unless you give it power by entertaining it. But if you engage with the doubt, if you follow its logic, if you let it pull you into questioning and analyzing and worrying, you have been swept away by the wave. You have left your state. Stay rooted. Let the doubts come and go like waves. You remain unmoved in your assumption. Let me give you 3 anchors, 3 practices that will keep you firmly rooted in your state, even when everything seems to be working against you. Anchor number 1, the feeling. Throughout your day, return again and again to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Not once a day, not just during techniques. Throughout your day, every hour if necessary. Stop for 30 seconds. Close your eyes if you can, or just become still if you cannot, and feel yourself to be the person who has their desire. Feel wealthy, feel loved, feel healthy, feel successful. Whatever your desire is, feel the reality of being that person. This feeling is your anchor. When doubt comes, when circumstances scream at you, when time seems to be working against you, return to the feeling. The feeling reconnects you to the state instantly. Make this a practice. Every hour, return to the feeling for 30 seconds. This constant returning to the feeling keeps you anchored in the state. You cannot drift far when you are returning to port every hour. Anchor number 2. Gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools for staying in the state, because gratitude assumes possession. You do not thank someone for something you do not have. You thank them for something you have received. When you practice gratitude for your desire, as though it is already yours, as though it is already done, you are assuming the end. An assumption is the state. Throughout your day, Be grateful for your desire. Thank you for my wealth. Thank you for this perfect relationship. Thank you for my health. Thank you that this is done. Not thank you that it will come, but thank you that it is. This gratitude keeps you anchored in the state of already having. It is impossible to be grateful for something and simultaneously believe you do not have it. Gratitude and lack cannot coexist. Anchor number 3. Revision. Every evening before you do your state akin to sleep practice, take 5 minutes to revise your day. Think back through your day. Where did you fall out of the state? What moments triggered doubt or fear or old thinking? And revise those moments. Replay them in your imagination, but this time you respond from your desired state. Did someone say something that made you doubt? Revise it. Imagine yourself hearing their words and remaining completely unmoved in your assumption. Did you check your bank account and feel fear? Revise it. Imagine yourself checking your account and feeling complete peace because you know you are wealthy in consciousness. Did circumstances contradict your assumption? Revise them. Imagine yourself seeing those circumstances and simply smiling, knowing the mirror is showing the old reflection while the new reality is already established in consciousness. This nightly revision serves 2 purposes. First, it clears any damage done during the day. You are literally rewriting the day so that in consciousness you remained in the state perfectly. Second, it trains you. Each time you revise a moment where you fell out of the state, you are teaching yourself how to respond correctly. You are rehearsing staying in the state. And tomorrow, when a similar situation arises, you will be more likely to stay rooted because you have practiced it in revision. Now let me tell you how you will know you have truly learned to stay in the state. There is a test, and it is called Sabbath. Sabbath means rest. It means you have done your work, and now you rest in the knowledge that it is finished. When you can imagine your desire, assume your desire, dwell in the state of your desire, and then let it go. Not abandon it, not forget it, but simply rest in the knowing that it is done, without anxious checking, without desperate hoping, without constant analyzing. When you reach this point, when you can plant the seed in consciousness and then rest, trusting the harvest, you have mastered staying in the state. This is the ultimate test. Can you assume your desire and then go about your life naturally, peacefully, without the need to constantly monitor whether it is working? If you cannot rest, if you are constantly checking for signs and evidence and proof, you have not truly stayed in the state. You are still reaching toward your desire rather than dwelling in possession of it. But when you can rest, when you can wake up in the morning and go about your day as the person who has their desire, not thinking about when it will come but simply being who you are, you have entered Sabbath. And in Sabbath, the harvest comes quickly. Here is how you know you are staying in the state successfully. When your desire becomes natural, not exciting, not special, not something you think about constantly. Natural, normal, ordinary. Think about things you already have. Do you think about them all day? Do you get excited every time you remember them? Do you hope they stay with you? No, they are simply yours. They are so naturally yours that you take them for granted. When your desire reaches this quality, when it feels so natural to be wealthy, to be loved, to be healthy, to be successful, that you almost forget you are manifesting it, you are dwelling in the state perfectly. This naturalness is the sign that you have truly moved rooms. You are no longer visiting the state of wealth. You are living there. You are no longer hoping for love. You are being loved. You are no longer trying to be successful. You are successful, and it is so normal that it barely registers. When you reach this naturalness, the physical manifestation is imminent. Why? Because naturalness means there is no more resistance, no more doubt, no more split consciousness. You are completely, totally, fully in the state. And the physical world must reflect a state that is occupied so completely. Let me tell you the ultimate truth about staying in the state. It is not about perfection. You will fall out of the state sometimes. You will doubt sometimes. You will be shaken sometimes. This is human. This is normal. This does not mean you have failed. Staying in the state is not about never leaving. It is about returning quickly when you notice you have left. It is about dwelling more in the desired state than in the old state. It is about making the desired state your home, even if you occasionally take trips back to the old state. Over time, those trips become shorter and less frequent. Over time, the desired state becomes so natural that you hardly ever leave. Over time, staying in the state becomes effortless because you are no longer trying to stay. You simply are. This is mastery, not perfection, not rigid control, but natural, easy dwelling in the state of your wish fulfilled. Right now, in this moment, choose your state. Where will you dwell? In the state of having your desire or in the state of lacking your desire? Choose now. Assume now. Feel now. You are the person who has their desire, not someday. Now, in consciousness, in the only reality that creates. And from this moment forward, your only job is to stay there, to dwell there, to make that state your home. When you fall out, return immediately. When doubt comes, let it pass without engaging. When circumstances contradict, remember they are the old mirror. Stay in the state. Dwell in the state. Live in the state. Do this, and I promise you, as surely as the sun rises, your desire will harden into fact. Not because you forced it, not because you earned it, but because you became it in consciousness first. And the physical world had no choice but to reflect the state you dwelled in. Stay in the state, my friends. It is the whole law in 4 words. Thank you, and good evening. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures. I will see you in the next video. Good evening, my friends. Tonight I'm going to share something with you that might sound unfair. In fact, it is unfair. Wildly, gloriously, magnificently unfair. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Because once you understand what I'm about to tell you, once you grasp the power you actually possess, you'll realize that those who know this secret are playing an entirely different game than everyone else. You have an unfair advantage. And tonight I'm going to show you how to use it. I'm talking about your imagination. Your ability to assume a reality that doesn't yet exist in the physical world, and through that assumption alone, bend your entire financial reality to match it. Let me tell you what most people do with money. They look at their current financial situation, the bank account, the salary, the bills, the debt, and they accept it as reality. They call it being realistic. They call it facing facts. And from that acceptance of limitation, they try to improve their situation. They work harder, they save more, they cut expenses, they hustle, they grind, they sacrifice. And maybe if they're lucky, if the economy cooperates, if their boss is generous, if nothing unexpected happens, maybe they improve their situation by 5%, 10% if they're really fortunate. This is the game everyone plays. The game of incremental improvement from a foundation of lack. But you don't have to play that game. Because you have imagination. And imagination is the most unfair advantage that has ever existed. With your imagination, you don't improve your financial reality by 5%. You don't gradually climb from where you are to where you want to be. You simply assume you're already there. And reality bends to match your assumption. Not gradually. Suddenly. Completely. Inevitably. This isn't theory. This isn't philosophy. This is the most practical thing I've ever taught. Because while everyone else is grinding away at their limitations, you're going to use your imagination to dissolve those limitations entirely. Here's what makes this unfair. 2 people can start with the exact same financial situation. Same income, same debt, same circumstances. One person accepts their situation as reality and works within its limitations. The other person refuses to accept it, assumes wealth in imagination, and lets reality reorganize itself. 3 months later, they're living in completely different financial worlds. Not because of luck, not because of privilege, not because of external opportunity, because one person knew the secret and the other didn't. Is that fair? Absolutely not. The person who discovered oil on their property didn't work harder than their neighbor. The person who invented something valuable wasn't more deserving than someone else. The person who received an unexpected inheritance wasn't morally superior. They simply aligned with wealth in consciousness, and wealth found them. And now you're going to learn how to do the same thing, deliberately, consciously, powerfully. Here's the truth that very few people understand. Your financial reality is not fixed. It's not solid. It's not determined by external forces. Your financial reality is fluid. It's consciousness made visible. And consciousness can be changed instantly. The physical world, the bank accounts, the bills, the paychecks, these are effects. They're shadows cast by consciousness. And when you change consciousness, the shadows must change. Most people try to change the shadows directly. They push against their circumstances. They fight their limitations. They try to rearrange the effects. But you're not going to do that. You're going to change the consciousness that's casting the shadow. And when you do, the entire financial picture must reorganize itself to match. This is unfair because it means you don't have to work harder than everyone else to have more than everyone else. You just have to assume differently. There was a woman who came to one of my lectures. She had exactly $300 to her name. Rent was due in 2 weeks. She needed at least $1,200. She told me she'd been thinking about how to stretch the $300, how to borrow the rest, how to explain to her landlord that she'd be late. I stopped her. "You're thinking from lack," I said. "You're trying to manipulate the shadow. Instead, use your imagination to change the light." She didn't understand at first. So I made it simple. Tonight I said, don't think about the $300. Don't worry about the $1,200 you need. Instead, imagine you're holding your rent receipt. It's paid. You feel relief. You feel secure. You're not trying to figure out how it happened. You're simply experiencing the fact that it happened. Live in that reality in your imagination. She agreed to try. For 5 days, she did nothing but imagine her rent was paid. She felt it. She experienced it. She lived in that assumption. She didn't know how. She didn't plan when. She just assumed it was done. On the 6th day, a former client called her. A project she'd worked on a year ago had been relicensed, and she was owed royalties she didn't even know were coming. The check arrived the next day. Exactly $1,200. Her rent was paid. Her imagination bent reality to match her assumption. And here's the unfair part. She didn't work any harder than someone else who might have struggled for months to earn that money. She simply used her imagination. I want you to understand something crucial. Your imagination is not a toy. It's not a pleasant pastime. It's not just daydreaming. Your imagination is the most powerful creative force in your life. It's how you bend reality. It's your unfair advantage in a world where most people don't even know the game they're playing. When you imagine something and assume it's real, you're not wishing, you're not hoping, you're not pretending, you're creating, you're commanding. You're bending the very fabric of your financial reality to match your assumption. Most people use their imagination against themselves. They imagine worst-case scenarios. They picture themselves failing. They assume lack, struggle, limitation, and reality obeys. It bends to match those dark imaginings. But you're going to do the opposite. You're going to use your imagination as it was meant to be used, as a weapon of creation, a tool of transformation, an instrument of financial freedom. Here's what I want you to do. And if you do this faithfully, your financial reality will bend so dramatically that people will ask you what happened, and you won't even know how to explain it to them. Tonight, before you sleep, close your eyes and imagine a scene that implies you are financially free. Don't imagine the money itself. Imagine what having the money would allow you to experience. Maybe you imagine receiving a bank statement that shows abundance. Maybe you imagine a friend congratulating you on your financial success. Maybe you imagine yourself making a purchase you've always wanted without any concern about the cost. Whatever scene you choose, make it real. Feel it, hear the sounds, see the colors, experience the emotions. Make it so vivid that for those few moments before sleep, it's not imagination, it's memory. And here's the key: fall asleep in that scene. Let it be the last thing your conscious mind experiences before sleep takes you, because sleep is the doorway. In sleep, your assumption sinks deep into your subconscious mind, where it has the power to reorganize your entire reality. Do this every single night, not as a technique you're trying, as a reality you're living in imagination until it becomes your reality in physical form. I knew a businessman whose company was failing. He was weeks away from bankruptcy. His employees didn't know, his family didn't know, but he knew, and the weight of it was crushing him. He came to me in desperation. I've tried everything. I've worked 18-hour days. I've cut costs everywhere. I've pursued every possible client. Nothing works. The money just isn't there. Good, I said. He looked at me as if I'd lost my mind. Good? Yes, good. Because now you've exhausted all the usual methods. Now you're ready to use the unfair method. I taught him what I'm teaching you. Assume success in imagination. Live in it. Breathe it. Be it. Not as a future goal, but as a present fact. Every night he imagined his business thriving. He heard employees celebrating. He felt the satisfaction of abundance. He saw the numbers that proved success. He didn't know how this could happen. His logical mind said it was impossible, but he did it anyway because he had nothing left to lose. Within 6 weeks, everything changed. A competitor made an unexpected offer to partner with him. A product he'd shelved years ago suddenly found a market. A client he'd written off came back with a massive contract. His business didn't just survive, it exploded. Within a year, he tripled his previous revenue. Was it fair? No. He didn't work 3 times harder. He didn't suddenly become 3 times smarter. He simply used his imagination to bend his financial reality. And reality bent. You know what's interesting? Most people, even when they hear about this, won't use it. They'll nod along. They'll think it sounds nice. But they won't actually do it. And do you know why? Because deep down they don't believe they have this power. They don't believe their imagination can actually bend reality. They think it's too good to be true, too easy, too unfair. And so they go back to the hard way, the realistic way, the way that keeps them struggling for inches when they could be leaping miles. But not you. You're different. Because you're still here, still listening, still wanting to understand. You sense the truth in this. You recognize that there's something here that could change everything. So let me ask you directly. Are you willing to use an unfair advantage? Are you willing to bend your financial reality through imagination while others grind away at their circumstances? Are you willing to assume wealth so completely that the universe has no choice but to deliver it? If your answer is yes, then listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. This isn't complicated, but it is specific. And the specificity matters. First, identify your financial desire. Not in vague terms like more money, but in specific feelings. How would you feel if your finances were exactly as you wanted them? Relief? Security? Freedom? Joy? Identify that feeling. Second, create a simple scene that implies that feeling. Don't make it elaborate. Simple is better. Maybe you're checking your bank account and smiling. Maybe you're telling someone money is no longer a concern for me. Maybe you're making a purchase you've wanted without hesitation. One simple scene that implies your financial freedom. Third, every night, before sleep, live in that scene, not as fantasy, not as wishful thinking, as experience. Feel it real. Make it so vivid that you forget you're imagining it. For those few moments, you're not in your current financial reality. You're in the reality you're creating. Fourth, fall asleep in that feeling. This is crucial. Don't imagine the scene and then return to worry about your bills. Imagine the scene and drift into sleep while still feeling its reality. Let that assumption be the seed planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious. Fifth, let it go during the day. Don't obsess about when or how it will manifest. You've planted the seed. Trust it's growing. Live your day from the assumption that it's already done, even if the physical evidence hasn't caught up yet. Do this faithfully for at least 30 days. Not half-heartedly. Not occasionally. Faithfully. Every single night. And watch as your financial reality begins to bend. I've seen this work thousands of times. I've watched people go from poverty to prosperity, from debt to wealth, from financial chaos to financial peace, not through hard work alone, not through lucky breaks, through the deliberate use of imagination to bend their financial reality. If you use this unfair advantage, if you assume wealth in your imagination with the same faith that you currently assume limitation, your financial world will transform. Not because you deserve it more than others, not because you're special, but because you understood the law and applied it. This is your unfair advantage. While others accept their financial limitations as reality, you recognize them as shadows that can be changed by changing the light of consciousness. While others work harder within their limitations, you use imagination to dissolve those limitations entirely. While others hope and wish and wait, you assume and persist and manifest. I want to end with this thought. Life is not the game you thought it was. You thought the game was about working hard, saving money, making smart investments, and hoping for the best. But that's not the game. That's just what people who don't know the rules are doing. The real game is this. Consciousness creates reality. And whoever masters their consciousness masters their reality. Your financial situation is not determined by the economy, by your education, by your background, by your current circumstances. Your financial situation is determined by your assumptions in consciousness. Change your assumptions and you bend your financial reality. This is the most unfair advantage that exists. And now you know it. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Thank you, and good evening. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and I'll see you in the next video. Good evening, my friends. Tonight I am going to teach you something that will seem completely contradictory to everything you have heard about manifestation. I am going to teach you that the key to getting everything you desire is to stop caring whether you get it or not. This is not apathy. This is not giving up. This is not resignation or defeat. This is the most powerful state of consciousness you can achieve, the state of divine indifference. When you care too much about whether your desire will manifest, when you are desperate for it, when you anxiously check for signs of its arrival, you are actually pushing it away. Your very caring is the energy that repels what you seek. But when you can reach that rare state where you genuinely do not care whether it comes or not, because you are so certain it is already yours in consciousness, then it must come. It has no choice but to manifest, because you are no longer blocking it with the energy of need. Tonight I will show you the difference between caring from lack and caring from fullness, why desperation is the enemy of manifestation, and how to cultivate the divine indifference that allows everything to flow to you effortlessly. Let me begin by revealing the great paradox that most people never understand. The more you care about getting something, the more you confirm that you do not have it. And in confirming that you do not have it, you perpetuate its absence. Think about this carefully. When you desperately care about manifesting money, what is the feeling beneath that caring? It is the feeling of not having money. It is the feeling of lack, of need, of insufficiency. Your desperate caring is actually a continuous affirmation. I do not have this, I need this. I am incomplete without this. And since consciousness creates reality, that feeling of not having becomes the reality you experience. Your caring born from lack creates more lack. But when you reach the state of not caring, the state where it would be nice if it came, but you are perfectly content whether it does or not. You are actually affirming, I am complete, I am whole, I am abundant, regardless of whether this particular thing manifests. And from that state of wholeness, everything flows to you. A woman came to me several years ago, absolutely desperate to find a romantic partner. She had been alone for 5 years, and her desire for a relationship had become all-consuming. She thought about it constantly, worried about it endlessly, cared about it desperately. Neville, she said, I want this so badly. I care more about this than anything else in my life. Why isn't it manifesting? I looked at her and said, your desperation is the very thing preventing its manifestation. You care too much, and in that caring, you are broadcasting the frequency of being alone, of lacking love, of being incomplete without a partner. She was shocked. But shouldn't I care about what I want? Shouldn't I desire it intensely? There is a difference, I explained, between desiring from fullness and desiring from emptiness. Right now you are caring from a place of desperate need. You believe you are incomplete without a partner. That belief, that feeling of incompleteness, is what you are creating from. And incompleteness can only create more experiences of incompleteness. I taught her something radical. You must reach a state where you genuinely do not care whether a partner comes or not. Not because you have given up, but because you have become so complete in yourself, so whole in your own consciousness, that a partner would be wonderful but is not necessary for your fulfillment. At first she thought I was telling her to give up on her desire. But I explained that this was not about giving up, it was about giving over. It was about releasing the desperate grip of needing the desire and resting in the certainty that you are already complete. She practiced this for several months. She deliberately cultivated a feeling of contentment with her life as it was. She stopped desperately seeking. She reached a genuine state of it would be nice, but I am perfectly fine either way. And within 3 months of reaching that state of divine indifference, she met someone naturally, effortlessly in the most unexpected way. But notice, she did not meet him while desperately seeking. She met him when she had stopped caring about whether it happened or not. The caring from lack had kept him away. The indifference from fullness had drawn him to her. Let me be absolutely clear about why desperation repels what you desire. Desperation is the loudest possible declaration of absence. When you are desperate for money, you are affirming poverty. When you are desperate for love, you are affirming loneliness. When you are desperate for health, you are affirming sickness. Desperation is consciousness focused entirely on what is missing, and what you focus on in consciousness must manifest as your experience. Think about the energy of desperation. It is clutching, grasping, needy, anxious. It is the energy of someone drowning, frantically reaching for anything to save them. And this energy repels rather than attracts because it is the energy of lack, not abundance. I have seen this principle demonstrated countless times. People come to me desperate for their desires, desperate for money, for healing, for love, for success. And I can see immediately that their desperation is the very thing preventing manifestation. A businessman came to me whose company was on the verge of bankruptcy. He was desperate, frantically working, anxiously strategizing, desperately trying to force success. Every fiber of his being screamed, I need this business to succeed or I will be destroyed. And that desperate energy was repelling every opportunity, every solution, every possibility of success. I said to him, your desperation is strangling your business. You must release the death grip. You must stop caring so desperately about whether it succeeds or fails. But how can I not care? He protested. Everything depends on this. My family, my reputation, my entire future. That belief that everything depends on this is the very belief that is killing your business, I explained. As long as you believe your well-being depends on this external circumstance, you will remain in a state of desperate need, and desperate need can only create more need. I taught him to practice a daily meditation, where he would deliberately release his grip on the outcome. He would imagine himself perfectly content whether the business succeeded or failed. He would feel that he was complete, whole, and abundant, regardless of external circumstances. This was difficult for him. It felt like giving up, like tempting fate. But I explained that this was not giving up, it was giving over to a higher power, to the infinite intelligence of consciousness that knows how to create far better than the limited, desperate conscious mind. As he practiced this release, something remarkable happened. His anxiety dissolved, his desperate action ceased. And from that place of indifference, of genuine I am fine either way, creative solutions appeared that he had been too desperate to see before. Within 6 months, his business had not only recovered, but was more profitable than ever. But the recovery came only after he stopped desperately caring about whether it survived or died. Desperation repels. Indifference attracts. Now let me reveal to you what divine indifference actually is, because many people misunderstand this principle. Divine indifference is not about not wanting your desire. It is not about suppressing your wishes or pretending you do not care. Divine indifference is the natural state of someone who already has what they desire. Think about something you already have that you no longer think about. Perhaps your ability to walk, to see, to breathe. Do you care desperately about having these things? No. You are indifferent to them because they are already yours. They are so natural, so certain that you do not give them a second thought. That is the indifference I speak of. It is the indifference that comes from having, not from giving up. When you truly assume that your desire is already yours in consciousness, when you have felt it so completely that it becomes natural and normal, you automatically become indifferent to whether it manifests physically, because you know it already is yours where it matters most in consciousness. This is why I teach living in the end. When you live in the end, when you dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, you naturally stop caring about when or how it will appear physically, because you are already experiencing it in consciousness. A young man came to me wanting to manifest a specific career position. For months, he had been desperately hoping, anxiously checking, obsessively monitoring, and nothing was happening. I asked him, if you already had this position, would you be anxiously checking to see if you had it? He laughed. Of course not. If I had it, I would just be living my life doing the job. Exactly, I said. Your anxious checking is proof that you have not yet assumed you have it. You are living in the state of not having it, and desperately wanting it. You must shift to the state of already having it, which naturally produces indifference to whether the external world has caught up yet. I taught him to dwell in the end so completely that he would forget to check for signs, to imagine himself in the position so vividly and naturally that it became more real than his current circumstances, to live from that end state with such certainty that the question of when will it happen became irrelevant. As he practiced this, his desperate caring dissolved. He reached a genuine state of indifference, not because he had given up, but because he was so certain it was already his, that the physical manifestation became merely a detail, a formality, something that would happen in its own perfect time. And within 2 months, the position was offered to him in a way he never could have predicted or planned. Divine indifference is not apathy. It is certainty so deep that you stop needing external confirmation. One of the most powerful aspects of divine indifference is detachment from how and when your desire will manifest. When you care desperately about your desire, you also care desperately about how it will come and when it will arrive. You try to control the means, to force the timing, to manipulate the circumstances. And this controlling energy blocks the infinite intelligence that knows exactly how and when to manifest your desire perfectly. But when you reach the state of indifference, you naturally release control of the how and when. You rest in the certainty that it is already yours in consciousness, and you trust that it will manifest in the perfect way at the perfect time. This detachment is not passive. You still take inspired action. You still move in the direction of your desire, but you do so from a place of peace rather than desperate control. You act when inspired, not when anxious. You move forward with confidence, not with frantic pushing. A woman wanted to sell her house and had been desperately trying to control every aspect of the process. She obsessively staged the home, anxiously monitored the market, desperately pressured her real estate agent, and the house was not selling. I said to her, your desperate control is blocking the sale. You must release your grip on how this happens, and when this happens, you must become indifferent to the details while remaining certain of the outcome. She practiced assuming the house was already sold, then releasing all concern about how and when it would sell physically. She stopped obsessively checking for offers. She stopped desperately manipulating the process. She reached a state of peaceful indifference, and within 3 weeks, after months of desperate trying had produced nothing, the house sold quickly and for more than her asking price. When you release control of the how and when, you allow infinite intelligence to orchestrate circumstances in ways far beyond what your limited mind could plan. Let me give you a practical test to know whether you have reached the state of divine indifference. Can you walk away from your desire without feeling loss? Not because you do not want it, not because you have given up, but because you are so certain it is already yours in consciousness that whether it manifests physically today or tomorrow or next month is irrelevant to your sense of completeness. If the thought of your desire not manifesting creates anxiety, panic, or devastation in you, you have not yet reached divine indifference. You are still attached to the outcome from a place of need. But if you can genuinely say, "It would be wonderful if this manifests, and I know it will because it already is mine in consciousness, but I am perfectly content and complete regardless of when the physical evidence appears," then you have reached the state that allows manifestation to flow. This is the ultimate test, and it is the hardest for most people to achieve, because it requires them to find their completeness within themselves rather than in external circumstances. A man came to me who had been desperately trying to manifest a relationship with a specific woman. He thought about her constantly, desperately engineered ways to encounter her, and she seemed completely uninterested. I said to him, "Could you walk away from this desire right now and feel perfectly fine?" "Absolutely not," he said. "I need this to happen. I cannot imagine my life without her." "There is your problem," I replied. "You have made her your source of completeness. You believe you are incomplete without her. And that belief creates the desperate energy that repels her." I taught him to practice becoming complete within himself, to find his wholeness independent of whether she was in his life or not, to reach a genuine state where he could say, "I would love to be with her, but I am perfectly complete whether I am or not." This was the hardest work he had ever done, finding his completeness within himself, rather than seeking it from another person. But as he practiced this, something shifted. The desperate, needy energy dissolved. He became genuinely content with his life as it was. And interestingly, as he reached that state of indifference, as he became genuinely okay with or without her, she began showing interest. The very indifference he had cultivated became attractive, because it signaled wholeness rather than neediness. The ability to walk away is not about rejecting your desire. It is about being so complete in yourself that your desire becomes a joyful addition rather than a desperate need. Now, let me clarify something important. I am not teaching you to become cold, emotionless, or uncaring about life. I am teaching you the difference between caring from fullness and caring from lack. Caring from lack is, "I need this or I will be incomplete." Caring from fullness is, "I already am complete, and this will be a delightful expression of my completeness." Caring from lack is, "Without this, I am not enough." Caring from fullness is, "I am already enough, and this is the overflow of my abundance." Do you see the difference? Both involve caring. Both involve desire. But one cares from a place of emptiness and need, while the other cares from a place of wholeness and abundance. When you care from fullness, you naturally embody divine indifference because your well-being is not dependent on the outcome. You want it. Yes. You desire it, yes. But your sense of completeness, your inner peace, your fundamental okayness does not depend on getting it. And paradoxically, it is this very independence from the outcome that allows the outcome to manifest effortlessly. A woman wanted to start a business but was paralyzed by fear of failure. She cared desperately about succeeding because she believed her worth as a person depended on the success of this business. I said to her, "You are caring from lack. You believe your business success will make you valuable, which means you currently believe you are not valuable. That belief in your own inadequacy will sabotage your business before it even begins." I taught her to find her value independent of any external achievement, to know herself as already whole, already worthy, already successful in consciousness. To care about the business from that place of fullness, rather than from a desperate need to prove her worth. As she practiced this, her entire energy around the business changed. She stopped desperately needing it to succeed, to validate her worth. She began enjoying the process rather than anxiously fixating on outcomes. She made decisions from confidence rather than fear, and her business flourished because it was built on a foundation of fullness rather than desperate need. Care about your desires, yes, but care from the overflow of already being complete, not from the desperation of trying to become complete. So how do you cultivate this state of divine indifference? How do you stop caring in the way that blocks and start not caring in the way that allows? The practice is simple but profound. Daily release. Each day consciously release your grip on the outcomes you desire, not by giving up on them, but by affirming your completeness independent of them. You might say to yourself, I desire this, and I know it is already mine in consciousness. But I am perfectly complete, whether the physical world shows it to me today or not. I release my need for external validation of what I know is already true in consciousness. Or more simply, it would be wonderful, but I am fine either way. This is not a statement of indifference from apathy. It is a statement of indifference from certainty. You are fine either way because you know it is already yours where it truly matters. In consciousness, and the physical manifestation is merely a matter of time. Practice this release especially in moments when you catch yourself desperately checking for signs, anxiously obsessing over timing, or frantically trying to control how your desire will manifest. In those moments, pause, take a breath, and consciously release the death grip. Affirm your completeness. Return to the state of certainty that allows indifference. A man wanting to heal his body caught himself obsessively checking symptoms dozens of times per day. Each time he checked, he was affirming, I am still sick, I am still broken, I still need healing. I taught him to practice release each time he caught himself checking, to say, I am already whole in consciousness. This physical evidence is old news, already fading. I release my need to see it change right now. I am perfectly at peace. As he practiced this daily release, his anxiety about healing dissolved. And interestingly, as his anxiety dissolved, his symptoms began to improve. The body was responding to his shift from desperate caring to peaceful certainty. Release does not mean you stop desiring. It means you stop desperately needing. And that shift from desperate need to peaceful certainty is what allows manifestation to flow. Divine indifference is the ultimate freedom because it means nothing external can disturb your peace. Your well-being, your completeness, your sense of self is no longer dependent on circumstances behaving the way you want them to. You become like the sun, shining regardless of whether anyone basks in your light. Complete in yourself, abundant in yourself, whole in yourself. And from that state of self-sufficient wholeness, everything flows to you because you are no longer repelling anything with desperate need. This is the great secret that mystics throughout history have taught. Attachment is suffering, and freedom comes from releasing attachment to outcomes while remaining passionately engaged with life. You care deeply about your desires. Yes. You hold the vision. Yes. You maintain the assumption. Yes. But underneath it all, you remain peacefully indifferent to when and how they manifest, because you are already complete in consciousness. Tonight I want you to understand this clearly. The things you desperately care about are being kept away by your very desperation. The tight grip with which you clutch your desires is strangling them. But if you can release that grip, if you can reach the state of divine indifference where you are genuinely okay either way because you know you are already complete, then everything you desire must flow to you effortlessly. Stop caring about when it will happen. Stop caring about how it will happen. Stop caring about whether others see it happening. Stop caring in the desperate, needy way that pushes away. Instead, care from the fullness of already having. Care from the overflow of being complete. Care with the peaceful certainty that what is yours in consciousness must manifest in experience. The paradox is real. Stop caring, and you get everything. Not because the universe rewards indifference, but because indifference is the natural state of someone who already has what they desire in consciousness. Be indifferent to the timing. Be indifferent to the means. Be indifferent to external validation. But remain absolutely certain of your inner reality. Your consciousness of already having that certainty, combined with indifference to externals, is the most powerful state of manifestation you can achieve. Release the death grip. Find your completeness within. Care from overflow rather than from need. And watch as everything you desire flows to you effortlessly, naturally, inevitably. Not because you stop wanting it, but because you stop desperately needing it. Stop caring in the way that blocks and start not caring in the way that allows. And you will get everything. Thank you, and good evening. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and I'll see you in the next video.
My friends, what I am about to share with you tonight will fundamentally alter your understanding of consciousness itself. And more importantly, it will reveal to you the most profound secret that has been hiding in plain sight within the pages of Scripture for nearly 2,000 years. A secret so powerful that once you grasp its true meaning, you will never again wonder whether your desires can become reality. For you will know with absolute certainty that they already are reality in the realm of imagination, waiting only for your recognition and acceptance to manifest in what we call the physical world. Tonight, we are going to explore what the ancients called the mind of Christ, but not as theologians have interpreted it, not as moralists have reduced it to mere ethical behavior, but as the mystics have always known it to be, a state of consciousness so elevated, so aligned with the fundamental creative principle of existence, that it serves as a literal portal between the world of imagination, where all things exist in their perfect state, and this world of shadows and reflections, where we experience the outpicturing of our inner convictions. But before we dive into the depths of this mystery, let me tell you something that will shake you to your very core. Every single person who has ever walked this earth and accomplished anything truly extraordinary, every individual who has ever transcended their circumstances and created miracles in their life, has discovered and applied these very principles, whether they called them by the name of Christ consciousness or universal mind, or the creative power of assumption. For there is only one power, one presence, one law operating in all creation, and that is consciousness itself. Your consciousness, individualized and personalized as your own wonderful human imagination. Now, what I am about to share with you may surprise those who have been taught to think of Christianity as separate from or opposed to other spiritual traditions. The truth is that every great mystical system that has ever existed on this earth has taught the same fundamental principle, that consciousness is the creative power of the universe, that man is made in the image and likeness of this creative principle, and that through the proper use of imagination and assumption, any individual can transform their life and circumstances in ways that would appear miraculous to those who do not understand the law. The ancient Egyptians spoke of the neter, the divine principle within man that could reshape reality through focused intention and visualization, and their mystery schools taught initiates how to identify with this divine essence rather than with their physical form or circumstances, how to live from the consciousness of the God within rather than from the consciousness of the mortal without. The Hindu tradition teaches that Atman, the individual soul, and Brahman, the universal consciousness, are one and the same, and that the recognition of this unity dissolves all sense of separation and limitation, revealing the individual as nothing less than the creative power of the universe, temporarily forgetting its true nature, but always capable of remembering and reclaiming its divine inheritance. The Buddhist understanding of the void or emptiness points to the same truth, that what we call solid reality is actually the projection of consciousness, that all phenomena arise from and return to the fundamental creative principle that the Buddhists call Buddha nature, which is not different from what Christians call the Christ within, or what mystics of all traditions recognize as the divine spark of creative imagination that dwells at the heart of every human being. But here is what makes the Christian revelation so uniquely powerful and practical. Jesus did not merely teach these principles philosophically or metaphysically. He demonstrated them physically and historically. He showed us exactly what happens when a human being fully realizes and embodies their divine nature, when someone completely identifies with the creative principle rather than with appearances, when consciousness operates without the interference of doubt, fear, or limitation. Now you might ask yourself, how can this be? How can consciousness alone be responsible for the world I see around me? And this is where modern science begins to catch up with ancient wisdom. For quantum physics has revealed to us that matter, at its most fundamental level, is not solid substance, but rather organized energy, patterns of possibility that collapse into specific realities only when observed by consciousness itself. The double-slit experiment, conducted countless times in laboratories around the world, demonstrates beyond any shadow of doubt that the very act of conscious observation determines whether energy manifests as particles or waves, whether potentiality becomes actuality, whether the quantum field of infinite possibilities crystallizes into specific, measurable phenomena. And this is not theory or speculation. This is repeatable, verifiable scientific fact. Dr. John Wheeler, one of the most respected physicists of the 20th century, stated that consciousness is the fundamental reality, and what we call matter is merely consciousness acting upon itself, echoing almost exactly what Jesus taught when he declared that the kingdom of heaven is within you, that the creative power of God operates through your own consciousness, that what you bind on earth through your assumptions and beliefs is bound in heaven, and what you loose on earth through your change in consciousness is loosed in heaven. The field of epigenetics has shown us that our beliefs and mental states directly influence which genes are expressed in our physical bodies, that consciousness literally rewrites the biological programs that determine our health, our longevity, our physical capabilities and limitations, proving scientifically what mystics have always known, that consciousness is senior to matter, that mind shapes body, that our inner state determines our outer experience in ways that are measurable, predictable, and completely within our conscious control. What Jesus understood, what every mystic who has ever walked this earth has discovered, is that consciousness does not emerge from matter. Rather, matter emerges from consciousness, and the quality of consciousness, the specific state or feeling tone of awareness that we habitually maintain, determines the nature of the world that unfolds around us. But now let me tell you something that will change everything for you. This power, this Christ consciousness, this ability to walk between worlds and command reality to conform to your vision, is not the exclusive property of one man who lived 2,000 years ago. It is your birthright, your natural inheritance as a being made in the image and likeness of the creative principle itself. The portal that Jesus opened and walked through is the same portal that stands open before you this very moment, and that portal is your own wonderful human imagination, elevated to the level of absolute conviction, charged with the feeling of reality, infused with the certainty that what you imagine is more real than what your senses report to you about your current circumstances. For you see, when Paul declared, "We have the mind of Christ," he was speaking in the present tense, not about some future attainment or reward for good behavior, but about the immediate availability of this transformative consciousness to anyone who will dare to assume the feeling of their wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact in their outer experience. Imagination is not fantasy. Imagination is not daydreaming. Imagination is not escape from reality. Imagination is the very mechanism through which reality is created, the divine faculty through which consciousness projects itself into form and experience. The bridge between the invisible world of pure potentiality and the visible world of manifested actuality. When you imagine yourself already in possession of what you desire, when you feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, when you assume the state of consciousness that corresponds to your dream already realized, you are not pretending or make-believing, you are actually occupying that state in the only realm where it can be occupied before it manifests physically. You are claiming your desire in the world of causes, so that it must inevitably appear in the world of effects. This is why Jesus taught his disciples to pray, believing that they had already received what they asked for, why he instructed them to thank God before the miracle occurred rather than after, why he consistently demonstrated the principle of living from the end rather than living from the beginning, because he understood that consciousness creates by assumption, that what you assume to be true about yourself and your world must become true in your experience, because consciousness has no choice but to express itself, to outpicture itself, to create conditions and circumstances that match its inner conviction and expectation. And here is something that will revolutionize your understanding of what faith really means. Faith is not believing despite the evidence. Faith is not hoping that God will eventually answer your prayers if you ask sincerely enough or wait patiently enough. Faith is the actual feeling of your wish fulfilled. It is consciousness occupying the state that corresponds to your desire already realized, already accomplished, already yours in the world of imagination, where all things exist in their perfect and completed form. When the woman with the issue of blood touched the hem of Jesus' garment and was instantly healed, Jesus perceived that power had gone out from him because he was operating from a consciousness so thoroughly identified with wholeness, with perfection, with the unlimited creative power of God, that anyone who came into resonance with that frequency, anyone who matched that vibration of absolute conviction, immediately experienced the manifestation of their own healing assumption. This is not mysterious. This is not supernatural in the sense of being beyond natural law. This is the most natural thing in the world when you understand that consciousness is the substance of all that exists, and that like attracts like, that consciousness resonates with consciousness, that the feeling you maintain about yourself and your world creates an attractive field that draws to you the circumstances and experiences that match your inner state. But here is where most people fail to understand the true nature of faith. They think faith requires the absence of doubt. They believe they must maintain perfect mental control and never allow a negative thought to enter their minds. They exhaust themselves trying to force positive thinking and then wonder why their demonstrations are inconsistent or why their desired manifestations seem to take so long to appear. The truth is that faith is not the absence of doubt, but the persistence of assumption. Despite the presence of doubt, faith is not perfect mental control, but the consistent return to your desired state. Whenever you become aware that you have wandered from it, faith is not forcing positive thoughts, but gently and persistently occupying the feeling of your wish fulfilled, until that feeling becomes more familiar, more natural, more real to you than your current circumstances. Jesus himself experienced doubt and fear. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed, "Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me," acknowledging the natural human response to difficult circumstances. But then he immediately returned to his fundamental assumption of divine will and purpose, declaring, "Nevertheless, not my will but thine be done," demonstrating that faith is not the absence of human emotions, but the consistent choice to identify with divine rather than human consciousness, to live from the level of spirit rather than from the level of flesh, to maintain your assumption of good, despite temporary fluctuations in feeling or confidence. Now I want you to understand something profound about the nature of transformation. You cannot change your world by fighting against what you do not want. You cannot create a new reality by struggling against your current circumstances. For struggle itself is a state of consciousness that perpetuates the very conditions you are trying to escape. The art that Jesus mastered, the consciousness that he embodied and demonstrated, was the art of turning away from the evidence of the senses and turning toward the reality of imagination, the art of living from the end rather than living from the beginning, the art of assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and maintaining that assumption, regardless of what your current circumstances might suggest about the likelihood or possibility of your desire coming to pass. When Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, he did not plead with God to perform a miracle. He did not hope that perhaps this time his prayer might be answered. No, he thanked God before the resurrection occurred, because he was operating from a level of consciousness that knows only completion, only fulfillment, only the eternal, now where all things exist in their perfect state, waiting only for recognition and acceptance. Consider the profound wisdom in Jesus' words when he declared, "It is finished." He was not referring merely to his physical crucifixion, but to the eternal truth that all creation is already complete in the mind of God, that every possible state, every conceivable condition, every imaginable experience already exists in the realm of pure consciousness, waiting only for individual awareness to claim it, to identify with it, to assume it as true. This is why the mystics of all traditions have taught that the spiritual path is not about becoming something you are not, but about remembering what you have always been, not about earning God's favor or developing supernatural powers, but about awakening to the divine nature that has never been absent from you, that constitutes the very essence of your being, that is the source and substance of your consciousness and the creative power behind all your experiences. The ancient Hermetic axiom, "As above, so below," points to this same truth. What exists in the realm of spirit must manifest in the realm of matter. What is true in consciousness must become true in experience. What is assumed in imagination must appear in manifestation, because there is only one power, one presence, one law, operating at every level of existence, and that is consciousness itself, your consciousness, forever creating your world according to the pattern of your dominant mental states and habitual inner conversations. And this brings us to the most practical and immediately applicable aspect of everything I am sharing with you tonight. You do not need to earn your good. You do not need to deserve your desires. You do not need to prove yourself worthy of the life you want to live. For you are already worthy by virtue of the fact that you can conceive of a better state. You can imagine a more beautiful experience. You can feel the reality of your wish fulfilled. The only thing standing between you and the realization of your every desire is your willingness to assume that you already are what you want to be, that you already have what you want to have, that you already experience what you want to experience, and to persist in that assumption until your outer world reshapes itself to conform to your inner conviction. This is what it means to have the mind of Christ. It means to think from your desire fulfilled, rather than thinking of your desire unfulfilled. It means to speak from the consciousness of having, rather than from the consciousness of wanting. It means to move through your world with the quiet confidence of one who knows that the creative power of the universe is always saying yes to your dominant mental state, always outpicturing your habitual inner conversations, always manifesting the world that corresponds to your level of self-definition and expectation. But let me share with you a secret that will accelerate your progress immeasurably. The speed and ease with which your assumptions manifest in your experience is directly proportional to the naturalness with which you can maintain them. The effortlessness with which you can occupy the state of your wish fulfilled, the simplicity with which you can feel yourself to be what you want to be without strain, without force, without the exhausting effort of trying to convince yourself of something that feels foreign or impossible. This is why Jesus taught, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light," not because the spiritual path requires no discipline or commitment, but because when you understand the law correctly, when you work with consciousness rather than against it, when you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled rather than trying to manifest through willpower or mental effort, the process becomes as natural as breathing, as simple as choosing to think one thought rather than another, as effortless as deciding to feel grateful instead of resentful, satisfied instead of lacking, confident instead of afraid. The great secret of assumption is that you do not create your desire. Your desire already exists in the infinite field of consciousness, already perfect, complete. yours by divine right. You simply identify with it. You simply claim it. You simply assume that you are the person who naturally and easily experiences what you want to experience, what you want to have, what you want to be. Now, many people ask me, Neville, if consciousness is the only reality, if assumption creates facts, if imagination is God in action, then why don't my desires manifest instantly? Why is there often a time lag between my assumption and its manifestation? Why do some things appear quickly while others seem to take much longer? And the answer to this question reveals one of the most profound aspects of how consciousness operates in what we call the three-dimensional world of time and space. Time is not an absolute reality, but a dimension of consciousness itself, a framework through which infinite possibility expresses itself in sequential, ordered manifestation, allowing for the development, growth, and perfection of individual awareness. The interval between assumption and manifestation serves several divine purposes. First, it allows consciousness to test its own conviction, to prove to itself the reality of its creative power, to develop faith through persistence rather than demanding instant gratification like a spoiled child who has not yet learned the beauty of sustained focused intention. Second, the time interval allows for what we might call divine editing. As you maintain your assumption of the wish fulfilled, consciousness automatically adjusts and refines the manifestation to bring you not just what you asked for, but the perfect expression of what you really wanted, often in ways far more beautiful and harmonious than you could have specifically imagined. Third, the gestation period between conception and birth in consciousness parallels the gestation period in nature. Just as a seed does not instantly become a tree, just as a child does not instantly become an adult, the assumption of consciousness must be allowed to ripen, to mature, to develop all the necessary supportive conditions and circumstances that will allow your desire to manifest in the most perfect and sustainable way possible. Jesus understood this principle perfectly, which is why he taught, "In your patience possess ye your souls." Not patience as passive waiting or resignation to circumstances, but patience as the active maintenance of your assumption despite appearances, as the persistent return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, regardless of how long the outer world takes to conform to your inner conviction. But here is something that will transform your relationship with time and manifestation forever. Instead of measuring your progress by external changes, instead of judging the effectiveness of your practice by how quickly things appear in your physical world, begin to measure your progress by the ease and naturalness with which you can maintain your desired state, by the consistency with which you can return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, by the growing conviction that what you have assumed in consciousness must inevitably become fact in experience. For the truth is that every assumption you make, every state you occupy, every feeling you maintain is instantly creating its corresponding reality in the invisible realm of causes. And the physical manifestation is simply the automatic, inevitable outpicturing of what has already been established in consciousness. The delay is not in consciousness, but in matter, not in spirit, but in flesh, not in cause, but in effect. But now you may wonder, how do I actually apply this? How do I move from understanding these principles intellectually to experiencing their reality in my daily life? And the answer is beautifully simple. Though it requires the kind of disciplined mental practice that most people are unwilling to undertake because they are addicted to the evidence of their senses, hypnotized by their current circumstances, convinced that what is must continue to be. The practice begins with the recognition that consciousness is the only reality, that your awareness, your sense of I am, is the creative principle itself, individualized as you, and that whatever you consistently assume to be true about yourself must manifest as your experience, because consciousness has no choice but to express itself, to outpicture itself, to create a world that matches its inner nature and conviction. Every morning when you awaken, before you allow your mind to become occupied with the problems and concerns that your current circumstances suggest, spend time in the secret place of consciousness, in the sanctuary of imagination, where you can assume the feeling of your life already transformed, your desires already fulfilled, your problems already solved in the most beautiful and harmonious way imaginable. But let me give you a specific technique that will make this practice incredibly powerful and effective. Instead of trying to visualize complex scenarios or detailed scenes, which can sometimes feel forced or artificial, simply ask yourself this question. How would I feel if my desire were already realized? What would be the natural, inevitable feeling tone of my consciousness if I were already the person I want to be? If I already had what I want to have? If I already experienced what I want to experience? And then, without effort or strain, without trying to convince yourself of anything, simply allow that feeling to arise naturally in your awareness. Allow it to permeate your consciousness like a gentle fragrance. Allow it to become the background feeling tone against which all your other thoughts and experiences occur throughout the day. This feeling, this simple, natural, effortless feeling of your wish fulfilled, is worth more than 1,000 affirmations, more powerful than the most elaborate visualization, more effective than any technique or method you could possibly employ. Because this feeling is the actual substance of your desire. This feeling is consciousness itself, assuming the shape of your fulfilled wish. This feeling is God in action, creating your world according to the pattern of your inner conviction. Feel yourself living from the end. Feel the satisfaction of your wishes realized. Feel the joy of obstacles overcome. Feel the gratitude of prayers answered. And do this not as a technique or method designed to manipulate reality from the outside, but as a recognition of what is already true in the world of imagination, as an acceptance of what is already yours by divine right, as an acknowledgement of what must inevitably manifest, because consciousness always expresses itself as experience. When doubts arise, when circumstances seem to contradict your assumptions, when well-meaning friends and family members try to convince you to be realistic about your limitations and the impossibility of your dreams, remember that Jesus was surrounded by doubters who laughed at him when he declared that the young girl was not dead, but only sleeping. And remember that he asked those doubters to leave the room before he performed the resurrection, because consciousness responds to the dominant vibration in any environment. And faith cannot operate freely in an atmosphere of doubt and disbelief. This is why it becomes so important to choose your mental environment with the same care that you would choose your physical environment, to select your inner conversations with the same discrimination that you would use in choosing your closest friends, to guard your consciousness with the same vigilance that you would guard your most precious possessions. For your consciousness is your most precious possession. Your awareness is the creative principle itself. Your imagination is the very power through which God creates and sustains the universe. But here is a profound secret that will liberate you from the exhausting effort of trying to maintain perfect thoughts or control every mental fluctuation. You do not need to be perfect in your practice. You do not need to maintain your assumption every single moment of every single day, or never have a doubt or fear or negative thought in order for your desires to manifest. What you need to do is this. Whenever you become aware that you have strayed from your desired state, whenever you notice that you have returned to old patterns of thinking or feeling, whenever you catch yourself dwelling in the consciousness of lack or limitation or fear, simply and gently return to your assumption. Resume to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Occupy again the state that corresponds to your desire already realized. This gentle, persistent return to your desired state is what develops the spiritual muscle of assumption. This consistent choice to identify with your fulfilled desire, rather than your present circumstances, is what gradually shifts the center of gravity of your consciousness from the world of effects to the world of causes, from the realm of appearances to the realm of reality, from the consciousness of man to the consciousness of God. This is why it is so important to guard your mental atmosphere with the same vigilance that you would guard your physical health, to choose your inner conversations with the same care that you would choose your closest friends, to select your mental images with the same discrimination that you would use in choosing art for your home. For your consciousness is your home. Your inner world is where you truly live. And the quality of that inner environment determines the nature of everything that manifests in your outer experience. When you truly understand this, when you realize that consciousness is cause and everything else is effect, you will stop looking to the world to change so that you can feel better about yourself and your circumstances. And you will begin the magnificent work of changing your conception of yourself, so that the world must change, to reflect your new level of awareness and expectation. You will realize that every circumstance in your life, whether you judge it as positive or negative, pleasant or unpleasant, wanted or unwanted, is simply consciousness externalized, the automatic outpicturing of your dominant mental states and habitual assumptions about yourself and your world. And therefore, every circumstance can be changed by changing consciousness. Every condition can be transformed by transforming your inner conversation, and every situation can be healed by healing your self-concept. This understanding brings tremendous freedom, because it means you are never at the mercy of external conditions, never dependent upon the cooperation of others, never limited by your past or your present circumstances. For consciousness is always free to assume a new state. Awareness is always capable of identifying with a higher possibility, and imagination is always able to conceive of and feel the reality of a more beautiful experience. But with this freedom comes tremendous responsibility. For once you understand that consciousness is the creative power behind all your experiences, you can no longer blame others for your difficulties. You can no longer make excuses for your failures. You can no longer claim to be a victim of circumstances beyond your control, because you will know that you are the author of your own experience, the creator of your own reality, the God of your own world, through the Christ consciousness that operates as your own divine imagination. This is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it means taking full responsibility for everything in your life, acknowledging that every condition you experience is the result of some assumption you have made about yourself or your world. Accepting that your outer experience is always a perfect mirror of your inner state, whether you are conscious of that state or not. But it is also infinitely empowering, because it means that no matter what your current circumstances may be, how difficult or challenging or seemingly impossible your situation may appear, you always have the power to change it by changing consciousness. You always have the ability to transform it by transforming your assumption, to heal it by healing your self-concept and assuming a new and better state. You will realize that every desire that has ever stirred your heart, every dream that has ever captured your imagination, every vision of a better life that has ever inspired you to reach beyond your current circumstances, is not a random occurrence or wishful thinking, but is actually the movement of the divine creative principle within you, calling you to expansion, calling you to growth, calling you to the full realization of your infinite potential as a being made in the image and likeness of consciousness itself. And you will understand that the resurrection that Jesus demonstrated is not something that happens after death, but something that can happen every moment of every day as you die to old concepts of limitation and lack and are reborn into new states of abundance and fulfillment. As you crucify the false beliefs that have kept you bound and rise into the glorious recognition of your true identity as the operant power of consciousness in your world. For death, in the mystical sense, is simply the abandonment of an old state of consciousness, and resurrection is the assumption of a new and higher state. And this process of dying and being reborn can happen as often as you choose to let go of what you have been and assume what you want to become, as frequently as you decide to release identification with your limitations and identify instead with your possibilities, as regularly as you choose to stop being the person who lacks what they want and start being the person who naturally and easily has what they desire. This is the true meaning of being born again. Not a one-time religious conversion or emotional experience, but the continuous process of emerging from lower states of consciousness into higher states, of evolving from limited self-concepts into unlimited self-realization, of growing from the human consciousness that sees itself as separate from God into the Christ consciousness that knows itself to be one with the divine creative principle. Every time you assume a better state, every time you identify with a higher possibility, every time you choose to feel grateful instead of resentful, abundant instead of lacking, confident instead of afraid, you are experiencing a resurrection, You are demonstrating the power of consciousness to rise above circumstances. You are proving that spirit is senior to matter, that mind is more powerful than conditions, that assumption creates facts regardless of what the facts appear to be. Let me leave you with one final thought that will seal everything I have shared with you tonight, deep into your consciousness. The greatest miracle is not the transformation of your outer circumstances, though that will surely follow as night follows day when you understand and apply these principles. The greatest miracle is the transformation of your inner awareness, the awakening to your true identity as the divine creative principle individualized. The recognition that you are not a human being seeking a spiritual experience, but rather a spiritual being having a human experience, temporarily forgetting your divine nature, but always capable of remembering, always able to reclaim your birthright as the son or daughter of the Most High, always empowered to demonstrate through your own experience that with God, which is your consciousness, all things are possible. The portal is open, the way is clear, the power is yours. Not tomorrow, not when conditions improve, not when you become more worthy or spiritual or deserving, but now, in this eternal moment, where all creation exists, where all possibilities live, where all dreams wait to be born into the world of form, through the magnificent creative power of consciousness itself, operating as your own divine imagination, forever and always your faithful servant, ready to give you the kingdom that has been prepared for you from the foundation of the world, ready to manifest in your experience every good thing that you can conceive and believe and assume to be true about yourself and your wonderful, infinite, eternally abundant life.